Hi, everyone. So today we'll be having an industry career panel called Demystifying the Internet of Things, and it's from the experiences of a software engineer at Cisco.
Hi guys, it's Gideon. I'm a software engineer at Cisco, and I've been working there for like about a year now. And so thank you for having me, Christine. So
Awesome. So our first question for you, Gideon, is how did you get into the field of STEM and specifically in tech and engineering?
yeah, actually, this is a very a long. It's pretty much a long process. Like I'm that kid who like just didn't know what he was doing, right? Pretty much just like followed my friends of like people who likes accounting, and for me like I like I kind of like accounting because I like numbers. So I'm like friends and numbers. That'd be a good fit for me too, right? But at the same time, like at 2 year mark, right? I took this like random class of like programming. I literally had no idea what it was. I actually never heard about programming. It was just like it sounded cool. I was like, hey, you know what? Let's do it. It's more of like exploring. But at the same time, it kind of was scary. I was like what am I gonna do here? Like I knew no one, like my friends, I had no friend, like, and for me I like having that comfort of like knowing someone. I'm going here, I know someone who's going here, might as well do it. But here it was like more of adventurous feeling slash more of yeah, it's like courage. It took courage for me because I was like, yeah, this is new, everything was new. So so yeah, pretty much this is what I did. I took it, right. I took the class, and next thing I knew, like I started liking it, right. So after this like first homework, it was it's big homework, right. I was like, oh, like there's like a mixture of fear of like, oh, how is this gonna go, like code. I was mesmerized at the beginning, right. Like, whoa, like I can do that, I can do this. I can like print something. I can like do things that I've never done before, right. And so
Mhm.
I like the concept, right. But this time, like we kind of like had to like do our own part, do the homework, do this like for example, like this it was more of a store thing where like you can like go through the menu. So it's in the CLI command line, if you
Mhm.
guys would know. And you would like, it's like numbered, like, oh, press 1 to buy this, press 2 to buy this, press 3, and then if you want to buy more, press 4, something like that, right. And then that at the end, when when you're completely done, it would like, it needs to like print this like receipt of like the things that you have chosen thus far, right. And so it definitely was like super hard, like making it. Like I think after 2 weeks, 3 weeks in, I'm like, dang, from not knowing something to like I have to do this, right.
Mhm.
And so it was pretty daring and pretty like yeah, it's hard, definitely was hard, and it was a individual homework too. So, and not knowing people, I was like, oh shoot, like, like this is like hard, like, and yeah, it was hard, like asking for help and this and that. And so, like I did what I could and whatnot. And but yeah, at the end, like I was able to make it, and I liked it. I was like, after that like hard work, I was able to see like, wow, this is super cool. I had fallen for it like a little bit more.
Mhm.
But yeah, so at the end of that, of course, like I was like, okay, so I actually liked it. I actually like uh like this more than what I'm doing now, which was at that time was like accounting. But at the same time, it was like scary because I was like, okay, like there is pretty much no overlap between the requirements to be a software engineer in accounting. So that means I was like, oh, like I'm scared, like to go back to like to like pretty much go back from like route one and whatnot. And so I was like, man, like there's like, I was thinking this like thought of like, wow, like I never knew like there's something like this out there, right? And I started thinking, I was like, okay, so maybe there's like more out there, things that I've never, I never knew about. So I started going back to when I was a kid. I was like, I always wanted to become a pilot and whatnot. So I was like, maybe try that. And so I did. I took it. Like my brother was in the army, and he pretty much convinced me to like, oh, like join the army. You can be a pilot and whatnot. And they're gonna, like pretty much pay for your education, and it's your job too. It's a win-win. So I took it and whatnot. So 4 years passed by, and I was like, hey, this is a cool experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely like something that I would have never like experienced if I didn't join, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like I found my calling outside of that vicinity, like army. And so yeah, like after 4 years, came back, and I finally decided like, hey, like this is, like software engineering. It's more of a cup of tea, right? I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I would like this better more than like becoming a pilot, right? And yeah, that's what I did. It definitely was like a man, like this is 6. It took pretty much a setback of like 2 years for the counting, and then 4 years of army. It took me like 6 years to be you know to transfer, actually, just to transfer.
Mm-hmm.
And then that took another 2.5 years. So definitely a lot of setback, but at the same time, it's definitely worth it. Like I thought about it of like, would that 6 years is worth my lifetime, because that's what I'm gonna do, right? Like whatever I chose, like pathway, pathwise, I could have been an accountant like 6 years 6 years ago in that
Mm-hmm.
timeline, right? But at the same time, like I would have like dreaded like going forward then on, right? And so definitely was worth it. um and so here I am. Now I'm working for Cisco, and I'm working for the IoT department. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think Gideon made a really good point. Like usually you'd see people be like going into their majors and just like pursuing school like that, but in Gideon's case, in a lot of people's case, like it's not always like the first time you see it, you'll like it, or it's really like finding your career path and exploring around. So it's a good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so our second question is, what is IoT exactly? Can you explain a little bit?
Yeah, so IoT, it's actually a big word, Internet of Things, but to make it like a bit more basic, it's pretty much connecting your devices to the internet, derived from the word itself, Internet of Things. So for example, right, like in consumer level, we have something like smartwatches. So you guys probably have seen them like around, like let's say Apple smartwatches, right? Smart home appliances. So let's say smart light, or smart TV. Pretty much a lot of things are smart these days, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or pretty much anything that can send data, even your smartphones, um, uh, is considered an Internet of Things, right? Or and yeah, and so in the industrial scale, something that people are less aware of would be something like traffic lights, like manufacturing machines, and such thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so it's something that people like don't really see, right? So if we would see like here in the slides, like we have traffic lights, we have policemen. So for policemen these days, like they use something like IR 829. So it's a router. It's literally a router, but it's more of a in the industrial scale. So meaning that it's meant to like last, it's meant to like withstand like a lot of things. So for example, in this case would be like weather. I think that's one of the main feature of IR 829. I think we can see it in the picture. It's the one on this one, the
Yep.
right next to the laptop, right? Yeah, that's the one on the left, exactly that. So this one is like built to like withstand like heat, humidity, and such things. So in terms of like temperature, I think if I'm not mistaken, it's from -40 celsius to like 60 degrees Celsius. So this is Celsius. And if you convert that to Fahrenheit, that's a lot. So for
Mhm.
example, 60 Celsius is about 140 Fahrenheit. So that's super, super hot. Like you probably have experienced like 100 degrees Fahrenheit. That's really, really hot, right? But if you
Mhm.
multiply that with, 1.5 kind of, then that's like the capacity of that. And that's like in, in general. And there's like, like times, I think, like when it can withstand more heat, and whatnot. So yeah, I think that's the industrial scale. And I think I want to expand a little bit more in the machines, right?
Mhm.
On the machine, like a lot of things are like connected. So for example, the machines, you would be surprised, like, whoa, like, like machines need to have network, right?
Yeah.
Need to be connected to that, I think, the mainstream of like data, and so it can do things. And yeah, I think that's the main thing, like, so in conclusion, it's Internet of Things is the idea of connecting devices to the internet so they can like all speak together, so they can be managed, and they can be provision they can be, yeah, tracked down. And actually here in the slide, I almost missed, we have Cisco has something like called GMM. So it's a centralized, um, pretty much a networking management. It says on the name itself, management module, right?
Mhm.
Where it's a pretty much a GUI, like a something where you can see your management, or your what do you call this? Your devices, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Your gateways. So gateways are, pretty much, you can see their statistics. So maybe in the small picture you could see like, oh, like there's a circle thing, right? You
Mhm.
can see like how the gateways are doing. So gateways meaning, like, let's say IR 829, that's pretty much considered a gateway. You can see like how it's doing. Is it still up? Is it still down?
Yeah.
Like, and then within that, like, how are the connected devices doing to those gateways, right?
Mhm.
And I think those are the main points, like, um so we have your consumer level and you have your industrial level of
Mhm.
IoT.
Yeah.
But the idea is, again, is like connecting devices to the internet, and Cisco provide that capacity with the gateways, which
Mhm.
can be managed, for example, with GMM platform per se. And yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so the next video, it'll go a little more there's gonna be a video in the next slide where it goes in depth on, pretty much how the Cisco GMM handles all the devices in the industrial scale. So let's
Cool.
have a look.
Cisco simplifies the way you deploy, monitor, and manage your IoT gateways. Cisco Kinetic Gateway Management Module brings connectivity to fleet vehicles and field assets in only a few minutes. Open the GMM mobile app and scan your new gateway's barcode, or manually enter your gateway's serial number into the GMM dashboard, and you're up and running. Managing your IoT devices no longer requires an on-site network engineer. Predefined templates allow you to leverage IT expertise across your entire team. And end-to-end security lets you rest easy, knowing your data is protected at every level. Maximize the value of your cellular service with visibility into the strength of your cellular networks, and set rules to optimize your data plan usage while helping ensure that mission-critical applications are always up and running. Manage every component of your network and data connectivity for your sensors and applications, all from a centralized console. Optimize the way you deploy, monitor, and manage your IoT gateways with Cisco Kinetic GMM. Learn more at cisco.com/go/GMM.
Awesome.
That's
Nice
cool.
video.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to our next question. So, what does Cisco do as a company, and what are some IoT innovation the company has? I guess the previous slide had a couple, but feel free to share a couple more.
Yeah, so they mainly provide services, right? So they're like in big general view, at least one of the things that they're known for would be like switches and networking, right?
Mhm.
So they develop and pretty much like sell and manufacture these devices, right? And from the previous slides, we actually um looked onto it already. Like 829 is one, right?
Mhm.
Or 1101. 1101 actually, I think I didn't mention it. 1101 is another device, but it's more used for, let's say, static places. So let's say traffic lights. So you would see like those traffic lights being controlled by something, right? Or maybe the cameras need like some connection, right?
Mhm.
Or something that needs to be connected to the internet, right? So those are some of the, but there's like a lot more, right? Like, but 829, 1101, those are one of the big ones, right? But also like on top of that, like we have some telecoms. They provide telecoms to something like offices, school, and hospitals. So I think the more apparent would be like offices, right? In hospitals, you would like go to their like desk and you would see like, well, black phones with kind of like camera. You would see like the Cisco logo on it. So they're like they're pretty much apparent to like big companies, right? Or and yeah. So we have something like, yeah, like less apparent, right? Like let's say again like 829
Mhm.
or 1101. So they're like hidden and not a lot of people can see it. So for 829 they're like hidden. I don't know exactly in police car, but they're hidden there somewhere. And policemen, firemen alike uses them. And going back, 1101 is like hidden somewhere in the box um, to provide connectivity to those like to those traffic lights. And so
Awesome. So, what IoT work do you do at Cisco, Gideon?
yeah, actually that's a good question. So I do front end, so GUI, so anything that user interacts with, that's pretty much what front end is, and that's what I do. So I think in more familiar terms or familiar faces would be Google, right? Like so that you see a lot of people like uses Google, right?
Mhm.
Um, so this one, like we do that. I do that, So for this example, Google is has this like buttons, right? Like Google search, like the I'm feeling lucky button, and then the search box, right? So for front end, we're the one who puts things in place, right? So I put this in place, put this here, put that, like I'm feeling lucky on the bottom of that thing, right? And pretty much anything that you can see, right? This is like the simplified version, of course, right?
Mhm.
Anything that you could see, that's pretty much front end. So anything that people see is front end.
Mhm.
And functionality, what does the button do when you click this? So does it like turn to red, turn to blue? It sounds very um simplified, but it can be complicated in different ways, right?
Mhm.
um but yeah, I think that's the main thing. So for Cisco, I'm not exactly the one who does this like page right here, but it's another example would be like right here, like you would see the buttons right here, the design guides, the learning locator, and such, like anything that you can see, like that's front end, and someone had to do that. Someone had to put the picture right there where you see when the world needs to work, the world works on WebEx, right?
Mhm.
So that has to be put by an engineer, like all the Legos, like, oh, this one goes here, and then you put the small portion right here. And so those things like need some engineering, need some functionality, right? And so that's what I do for Cisco, like working with the GUIs with the front end. And
Mhm.
yeah.
Awesome. So, do you have any tips or advice for students interested in going into the IoT field?
Yeah, I think, wow, like you guys are young, like go crazy with the curiosity, expand, yeah, just pretty much just explore. I think one of the things that's on your side is time. You have like a lot of time on your side. Um, and so we can have like something like connecting like basic gadgets, right? In cloud, and control them remotely, which we would go through after this slide. For the basic, like basic idea, right? And yeah, so another thing would be like never memorize, but understand the concept, because codes would always be changing. They would always have updates. The things that you thought you memorized, sure, you memorized this line, like, oh, this is the way of doing things. When you, let's say, copy a code, like, how do you, copy an object and whatnot, like, oh, I know how to do it. Like, it's gonna change. Things are gonna be always changing and evolving, right?
Mhm.
And so the more important thing would be like understand the concept. So like, oh, like, this is what it does, and this is what, like, the reason why it's here, because to do this. And so the list goes on, right? But understanding, like, the concept is way above than like memorizing things. Never memorize, always understand. And so,
Mhm.
but that's what I did, and sometimes I still do. Um and uh and yeah, like, I get caught and whatnot, but at the end, it's always the understanding that makes a difference.
Mhm.
And yeah, so if we go to the next slide, right?
Mhm.
So for example, like, Raspberry Pi, so it's this like small computer. That can be, you can program it to do things, right? So it's literally a small laptop. Well, not small laptop, but it's a small computer that you can like program to do various things, right? Like, you can
Mhm.
control things. For example, this, you can control Christmas lights, pretty much do turn on and turn off. And the pretty things, the awesome thing about the Raspberry Pi is that you can connect it to the internet, right? And with the internet, you can pretty much control things. And so, for this instance, you can control Raspberry Pi through the web, right? If you build it that way, right? But the concept is to like connect the Christmas light to Raspberry, and the Raspberry to the internet, and then from there, like, you can like uh, control it,
Mhm.
however you want to, like, however you coded it, right? And so that's like the very, I mean, I think that's one of the most simplest thing that you can do to like get on like the IoT side, right? But this is just a basic thing, right? A lot of things
Mhm.
can be turned on and off. And it can be like turned on and off, not just lights, but let's say, in your, like this, like hanging lights could be like lights on your home. It could be like turning on and off a kitchen appliance, and so it's kind of like, oh, maybe you can like um schedule things, right? Like, oh, at 8 a.m. I want to like, like control this device, like to be turned on
Mhm.
and whatnot. So sky's the limit. There's like a lot of like example that you can do with on and off, which is the basic things.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think this is one of the examples. There's like a lot more out there, and this is, yeah, again, like, this is just one of them. And yeah, sky's the limit. You can do like probably more things that, like, people have done so far,
Mhm.
and yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the Raspberry Pi Arduino, like you can embed a lot of your, your regular day devices and embed this in to make it like basically make it smarter, right? Like how IoT is with smart devices. So yeah, really awesome stuff. And also something I wanted to highlight as well is I know Cisco, they have the networking academy. Sometimes it's online, but sometimes they're hosted at school. So the high school that I went to, they had the Cisco Networking Academy. So it's really cool. It's like you have a lecture for the first half of the class, and then you do like a physical like lab on networking. Basically, you have a bunch of those switches and routers, and then you basically follow the lab, have a topography, and cable everything. So it's really cool. And after completing the academy, you can also be certified for a CCNA. So for example, I got my certification a while ago, but it's really cool and really awesome skills you can pick up as a network engineer or even an IoT software engineer. So, yeah.
Cool.
And last but not least, we want to extend a big thank you to Gideon for his time
Perfect.
talking about his experiences going into software engineering, especially as an IoT engineer now at Cisco. So, thank you very much, Gideon.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. And yeah, thank you guys.